Hello and welcome to our 2036 presidential election coverage. As you may remember from last episode, former governor of Kentucky, Andy Beshear, was declared the winner of the Democratic primary. However, on the GOP side, it is still undecided. Let's get right into the polling. As you can see here, it is a very tight race. Secretary of the Treasury Glenn Youngkin is now tied for first with Attorney General George P. Bush. While Bush was initially the frontrunner for a decent amount of the primary, he failed to win many key contests, and as the economy rises, so does Youngkin's polls. He can see as Treasury Secretary, his personal approval rating and support among Republicans is essentially tied to the economy, and since it's doing better, so is he. Meanwhile, 1 point behind them is current leader in the delegates, Mike Garcia, 21%, and 1 point behind him is Sean Duffy. Duffy had a very late surge, but hasn't been able to win as many crucial primaries and is lacking delegates. The last key primary in Ohio was won narrowly by Youngkin in an upset over Duffy. Duffy could have potentially been the leader if he had won that key state, but of course Youngkin won it instead of him. Now let's look at the delegate map. As I mentioned earlier, Garcia is in the lead and Youngkin is behind him. After certain candidates like Maria Salazar and Kristen Nunu dropped out and endorsed respectively Garcia and Youngkin, their delegate numbers have jumped up dramatically. Meanwhile, George P. Bush, who was once in the lead, is now lagging behind at around 90 delegates behind Youngkin and over 100 behind Garcia. Meanwhile, Duffy, still in the race, may not have the necessary number of delegates in order to win, as he's lagging very far behind the frontrunners. And now we have a primary out of Kansas. This normally would be Duffy's state, as he is very strong among rural populous voters. However, Glenn Youngkin has shot up in recent polls. Let's look at the results. And we can project that by 6,000 votes, Youngkin is the winner. He's doing very well in the Wichita and Kansas City metro areas, especially in the suburbs, overcoming Duffy's strength in the rural areas. While Duffy swept the rurals and lost only a few counties to George P. Bush, he will still lose by a narrow margin. And now in Nebraska, this potentially could go the same way as Kansas. However, Duffy isn't letting the same mistake happen twice, and he's invested more resources into the state of Nebraska. And we can project that that work has paid off. Sean Duffy will win the Nebraska primary. And in Oregon, this state could really go either way. However, its moderate voters make it pretty good for a pickup for Youngkin. Let's check out the results. And we can project that in the Oregon primary, Glenn Youngkin is the projected winner. He'll do very well in the suburbs, and while Mike Garcia has strength in Portland and Duffy in the rural areas, it's not enough to overcome Youngkin's strength. And now we have poll closings out of the state of Hawaii, and Mike Garcia will easily win the state, no surprise here. And Sean Duffy has exited the 2036 presidential race. After losing several key states like Ohio and Kansas and only winning Nebraska after investing so much time in it, this is not good for his campaign and he's leaving the race. However, if the winner of this primary potentially loses this year, he could run in 2040 or in 2044. He also might, as he's not endorsed anyone, endorse the winner right before they are declared so he can get a potential cabinet position or more strength in the party. And now we have a primary map. Mike Garcia at 541 and Youngkin now closing the gap at 524. Meanwhile, Bush still lags over 100 delegates behind, and Duffy, of course, still on the map, but of course, he has dropped out. And now we have our last big batch of states that are having primaries. A few key ones up like Pennsylvania, Indiana, Maryland, and definitely a diverse batch of states coming from the Northeast, the Midwest, Plains, and the Sun Belt. Now let's look at some results. In Delaware, Glenn Youngkin will easily win this Northeast primary, very close to his home state of Virginia, so he's doing very well here. And in Indiana, a massive victory for Youngkin, winning by 6 points and about 60,000 votes. He, interestingly enough, swept both the suburbs and the rural areas, while Mike Garcia was relegated to the metro areas and George P. Bush the more establishment old guard moderate areas. And in Maryland, an easy victory for Glenn Youngkin, doing well with both the moderate establishment voters that aren't going for Bush just because of Youngkin's Northeast strength, and also with some more moderate populist voters. Very interesting result, but he will win by a massive margin over Bush and Garcia. And in Montana, this normally would have gone to a candidate like Duffy, but Youngkin has invested time here and will win this crucial primary. And in New Mexico, not a big shock, Mike Garcia will win this heavily Hispanic state, which is his main base in the primaries. And in Pennsylvania, a 6-point and 160,000 vote victory here for Youngkin, who will win this crucial state, sweeping most of the suburbs outside of Philadelphia and Pittsburgh itself, along with Erie and most of the rural areas. Interestingly enough, Mike Garcia will win in Philadelphia proper, while also winning a smattering of the more far-right, working-class populist areas. George P. Bush is relegated to the exurbs and a few more old guard areas like Centre County and the county that houses Harrisburg, the state capital. And in Rhode Island, Glenn Youngkin is easily the winner. And in South Dakota, a big victory for Youngkin, another rural state falling into his column, showing the strength of his coalition. We can also project that Mike Garcia will be the projected winner in the Washington, D.C. primary. Despite it being a northeastern state and very close to Virginia, Youngkin's home state, he will do well with minorities here and win the primary. And here's the current primary map. Despite Glenn Youngkin losing all but 2 primaries, he's only 6 delegates behind Mike Garcia. It is a very close race, and Bush lags 100 delegates behind both. Definitely, it is likely that he drops out and endorses one of the two. Insiders say Youngkin, given that he's more moderate and more in line with Bush's ideology. And we can now project some breaking news. George Bush, as we just said earlier, has left the race and is endorsing Glenn Youngkin, hit more in line with his ideology, and he will now release his delegates to vote for Youngkin. Definitely very big for the Secretary of the Treasury and former governor of Virginia, as this might cement his candidacy to win the Republican primary. As you can see now, including the endorsement, Glenn Youngkin is around 100 votes away from the 1,200 something necessary to win the Republican primary. Meanwhile, Mike Garcia seems unable to catch up, and our insiders are saying that Duffy may endorse Youngkin in exchange for a position in his cabinet or as a position as potentially Senate Majority Leader for the Republicans. And as we just mentioned, Sean Duffy will back Youngkin over Garcia. Despite being more in line with Garcia's more conservative populism, he's backing Glenn Youngkin, the Secretary of the Treasury, as he seems like a more likely winner and possibly even a stronger candidate. Definitely Duffy cementing himself as a kingmaker in this race, giving Youngkin the nomination will definitely give him a few favors in the GOP. And we have a major projection to make. Glenn Youngkin is declared the winner of the Republican primary. He will go on to face Andy Beshear and a potential independent candidate in order to become the next president of the United States. It'll be a very interesting race come November, but we now have both of our party's winners. And here's the current primary map, including all endorsements. Glenn Youngkin at 1,400 and Mike Garcia still at 650, unable to win over Glenn Youngkin's strength. And we have a wiki box here. Expect a closer look and a YouTube short coming soon. And Mike Garcia has chosen unity. Instead of trying to take it to the convention, he is endorsing Youngkin and ending his bid and pledging to campaign for the Secretary of the Treasury come November. Mike Garcia definitely has a future. He'd expect a role in Youngkin's administration if he wins, or if Youngkin loses, he definitely could run in the next few election cycles. And here is a Democratic ticket, but the VP is undecided, and that's where it comes up to you. You can choose Andy Beshear as VP using the link in the description or in the pinned comment. Either one works, though the pinned comment often comes up late, depending when you watch the video. And we also have our Republican ticket, Youngkin, and of course the VP, same thing that went for the Democratic ticket, you choose the GOP's VP. Also, I don't have a slide for this, however, you can choose the independent VP for Matthew McConaughey, who, spoiler alert, is running. Choose it down below, and I hope you make a good choice. So again, here's my official slide for this, choose the VPs. You can also write in one, but please make it a serious pick. I don't really want to have, Joe Biden being Glenn Youngkin's VP. But don't take that seriously. Please do not actually choose Joe Biden as his VP. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like, subscribe for more content like this, and comment your thoughts just to boost up my engagement. And thank you all for watching. Make sure to fill out the VP form, and I'll see you all next time.